The best investment that we have ever made, that we will ever make, is reinvesting back into our own personal development, our own company, and our own family.
We really believe that peace is the new profit.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I've got Rory with me, and we're talking about money, wealth, riches, what to do if you have some, how do you get it, and how do you keep it?
Money.
Really, we're talking about just like personal philosophies, best practices with money, mindset, tactics, strategies, but anything around personal finances.
I feel like people have asked us to talk about this before, and we've kind of been resistant to it because it's like, we're not the people that are like, hey, like, look at us, we're rich, which we're not like ultra rich or anything. But I feel like we've been a little bit resistant to that. But I also feel like there's a lot of bad influences online about money. So I'm excited about this because I do think there's some things that we've done differently. I think we have a joke inside in our family that we're weird, and it's like, we are very weird. I think we're very unusual in many ways, and I think statistically, financially, we're pretty unusual for our age. So I think it would be fun to do this and talk about it. So I'd like to start off with asking you, what are some of those philosophies that you think we have about money that are different from what most people have? And again, just kind of a qualifier, right? Like, we're not like billionaires and like the world's wealthiest people, but
we might be thousandaires.
Yeah, we're definitely hundredaires. Most days we're hundredaires. But I do think we've been able to achieve a level of, I guess I'll call it, financial peace, beyond what most people ever get to, certainly
Sure.
from where I grew up in. I'd love to just kind of, just start with that. Like, what do you think are some philosophies about money, and maybe not even that are different from other people, but just like philosophies we have that maybe we have spoken, or even ones that are sort of unspoken between us, because we haven't talked about this subject in a while.
Yeah, we don't talk about this publicly. And I think one of the reasons why is we're not financial advisors. So this is not legal, formal financial advice. Please go talk to a professional.
That's good.
These are personal philosophies and best practices, mainly curated from some really good things we've seen and some really hard things that we've seen. We've seen money build marriages up. We've seen money build marriages down. We've seen money help expand. We've seen money help implode. And so I think those are some of the things that have curated some of these practices and beliefs. If I were to start overarchingly, I think one of the things that makes us most unique is how simple and conservative our philosophies are. Somebody asked me last week, they're like, hey, I'm in this mastermind, and they're talking a lot about, crypto and investments and real estate. And she said, can I just get your take on how you invest your money? And I looked at her and I smiled really big. And I'm like, it's going to be a very short conversation. And she goes, why? And I said, I don't invest in crypto. I don't invest in a lot of real estate. And I have very little investments outside of some very conservative, boring 401k, IRAs, Roth IRAs, insurance, the end. And she goes, wait, what? And I'm like, the end. I told you it was going to be really short. It's very conservative. And I think a lot of that is what I have found, and I know that you agree with this, is the best investment that we have ever made, that we will ever make, is reinvesting back into our own personal development, our own company, and our own family. And there is nothing in the world, there is no reward great enough to risk my sleep and my peace and the security of my family and my team for some potential one-day big payoff. And maybe that's just really ignorant, but I'm choosing that. Like, I am choosing peace. I am choosing enoughness than some big potential investment and payoff. I'm choosing peaceful rest at night versus any anxiety over what the stock market is doing or what's happening with Bitcoin or anything in cryptocurrency. I'm not stressing out about managing lots of properties. Don't care. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that what we have learned for us is no thanks.
I think that's something that would shock people to know. Like for us, we really believe that that profit, like peace is the new profit. I think and to go like, we aren't really money motivated. Like
Yeah.
we don't go, oh, we have to like earn this much money to do this. And like, let's think about it every day. It's going, money is subservient to the mission that we're
Mm.
on. And so it's like money shows up as a byproduct of what we're doing. And I think, to your point of simplicity, I have to give a shout out here. And I don't know if you would say he's been as impactful in your life as I would. So I'll be curious to hear this. But like, I still look back on Dave Ramsey's financial piece, and we made a decision
Yeah.
that we weren't going to get married until we were both debt free. And I look at that decision as like the first step to being rich. Like, if you want to be ultra rich, I really still believe to this day the most important first tactical step is to be debt free. Because when you don't have debt, everything you make piles on top of itself, right? So, like, if you don't have a car payment and credit card bills and student loans and a mortgage, and you don't like paying off TVs and sofas, if you make $50,000 a year, then that means at the end of a year, you're going to have 50,000 sitting there. And then in 2 years, you'll have 100,000 and then 150,000. And then it starts to grow with interest. And it's like, you can have peace much earlier than you think. Like people feel like, oh, I have to invest because I need to like hit the Bitcoin jackpot, or I have to like, hit the lottery, or I have to, pick a unicorn company to invest in that'll have this like huge payoff. And they expend so much time and so much energy and so much money diluting all of this, where it's like, if you just like live simple and don't get into debt and you keep investing in yourself, you grow your income. So I personally really still feel like being debt free was one of the most important first things that we ever did.
Yeah, I think when it comes to personal financial decisions, and it's not that we don't have strategies. I have pretty much a minor in taxes at this point with the amount of books and courses that I've invested in terms of like I want to know just enough where I can make good decisions. I'm not going to read all how many ever thousand pages of tax code there is, but it's like, there's this new big, beautiful bill that came out. And it's like, I went to a course and I got, I listened to this webinar and it's like talking to, like, I need to know enough to go, how does this impact me? But I'm not going to like spend every extra dollar I have with some new, investment or tax shelter or tax saving strategy. And it's like, I care enough to go, yeah, I want to know what's happening. And I feel the same way about investing, right? It's like I think we should have IRAs and Roths and we need retirement plans and we did a cash balance plan and we have a donor advised fund. Like there are things that we do, but those are very simple and honestly they're all with the long game in mind. And I think that's one of the philosophies we have is we're not doing any quote unquote get rich quick strategies because at the end of the day, our goal isn't to get rich. I think that's what's
Mm.
surprising in a lot of ways. It's like we don't build a lot of, or not build,
We
but
don't make decisions
we don't
on
buy a
what's.
lot of real estate because we're not trying to get rich. It's really back, and I said this to somebody a few weeks ago, like I have never, since I have been alive, seen the stock market or any of our funds get the rate of return that we do in our own business.
Amen.
And it's like, if I'm going to invest money somewhere, I'm going to go where the greatest rate of return is. And I have yet to see any fund, any investment opportunity, anything come my way that has a greater, almost guaranteed, with my influence and control, rate of return and then investing into myself and investing into my own business.
And which includes investing into people.
Yeah.
And it's hiring new people. It's giving them raises and trying to like grow the pay so we can attract better people into the business and keep good people and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, if your business makes, a 20% profit margin, it's like, show me some other investment that's going to consistently make 20%. And I think what's crazy is all the get rich quick schemes are like exciting for a hot minute, but it's like literally trying to time the lottery, and then they like crash. And it's, we've been around now long enough to go, we've got lots of friends and people who've done like real estate. I think real estate could be a great investment, but
for the right person.
It's also like people get really leveraged, and it's like, man, I can't make money fast enough. I can't buy enough properties. And then the moment the interest rate goes up, or, there's the mortgage crisis or whatever, it's like, man, it all disappears quickly, and it can invert and go massively upside down.
Yeah.
And it's like, did you need all that in the first place? Like you have this high, but then you have this really low. You end up averaging in the middle. Like, what if you just kind of like plodded along?
Yeah, I mean, my family, I come from a construction business, and my brother and my dad build a lot of real estate on the side, right? In the quote unquote the non-busy seasons of the construction industry. And there's often been seasons of life where I'm really tempted of like, wow, like he's cranking out neighborhoods left and right, and look at all these deals he has coming through. And then I remember it's like, but that's not what I want. I have to and I'll tell you, one of the biggest financial personal philosophies I have is stop looking at what other people are doing.
Amen.
And that's the temptation. It's like, and I even have it with my own family, and I'm like, wow, it's like, look at all these deals they're turning, and look at all these houses, look at all this, wow. And then I'm reminded, it's like, yeah, but he works a lot of nights and weekends and a lot of mornings, and is always on the phone and always handling problems. And I just need to put on my own blinders and go, stop paying attention to what other people are doing. And there's no judgment in what other people do. And I just need to know, like, that's their lane. This is my lane. And I'm making choices that are good for me and my family. And they're making choices that are good for their family. And not one is right or wrong. They're all unique for each of us. But every single time that I've been tempted to try, I don't know, maybe we should buy, Bitcoin, or maybe we should do, it's only because there was some comparison, right? There was a bit of FOMO, or there was a bit of, well, everyone else is doing it. And when has that ever done any good for me? When I go back to my high school days, every single time I did something that someone else was doing, I got in the biggest, worst trouble of all time, every single time. I cannot think of one time ever that me jumping on the bandwagon did me any good.
I think it's one of the most important places you can get to in your life financially is when you can consciously say, I'm willing to accept less money if it gives me more peace. Like, I remember one of the recent things that happened to us, I don't know, it was maybe around the time of COVID, we started saying consciously, we don't need more money, we need less stress. Right? It's like, what are you going to do with more money? Like, what?
I got plenty of things we could do with more money, Rory.
Well,
I'll make you a list.
Really?
Yeah.
Is there a lot of things that you want to do, like, with more money?
I didn't say want. I said could.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of things we could do. Like when you ask the question, what are you going to do with more money? Well, I'll give you a list. There's a lot of things we could do with more money.
Yeah, but I think realizing to be getting to the place to go, like, I'm okay with less. Like, I don't need to have the nicest car, the biggest home, the private jet, the like.
Really, you don't want a private jet?
I would mind flying private, but I don't think I'd want a jet. A boat is a good example, right? Like, we could definitely have had a boat a long time ago. Yeah, but I'm like, we could own a boat, but I'm like, what a mess. Like,
I don't want to own a boat. I just want friends with boats.
It's kind of the same thing with real estate. It's like, yeah, I know we could kind of build the empire, and like, I don't know, maybe we're missing out there, but I'm like, man, it's so much.
To that point, we're only missing out because we're looking at what someone else is doing.
Yeah, or listening to what somebody else is saying. And here's the part about running your own race, because it's like, it's you always say the grass isn't always greener. it's almost never anywhere near as good as it sounds, right? Like they say, oh, I got this Bitcoin thing, and it's like all they're talking about for a year. And then, we have some friends that have lost significant money, very painful. Same with real estate, same with investing into businesses, same with buying individual stocks,
Sure.
right? I mean, our plan, I think, looking back on our path was very simple. It was like, we got debt free, we lived below our means, we maxed out, first of all, our IRAs, then we maxed out our 401ks, then we had enough in the stock market that just the rate of compounding interest over the next 30 or 40 years, plus we had term life insurance. And then it was like, okay, now we have, after all that is taken care of, you go, now what? It's like, well, I guess we'll, buy a few things. We got the house of our dreams, and we upgraded. For those of you that don't know the story, like the first house we bought when we were married was 1,000 square feet.
It was 1,200 square feet, and technically I bought it.
Technically you bought it.
Just to be clear.
Yeah, just so everyone knows who the sugar mama is in this relationship.
$179,000 house, to be clear.
But then
$179,000.
That was 2010.
Yeah.
And then it was like 7 years later, we built our dream home, which was a very nice home. And that was because our business has also quadrupled. And, we'd had books come out, and we were speaking everywhere, and like you were doing consulting with big companies, and, we had some more income, but it was just it was because we weren't trapped by debt. Everything that we made just started to kind of like pile on top of itself. And we were also not quick to be like, oh, let's go buy 100 properties and, like multiply everything. It was like, no, I just want to have like this place that we live every day that we're happy with, and not have a lot of stress to like pay the mortgage and like be buried underneath the weight of feeling like we have to do stuff. And I think, and then after that, it was like, oh, that put us in the position to start Brand Builders Group. Really, you should tell them about the financially, why we were able to start Brand Builders Group, just on the purely financial side. Do you know what I'm getting at there? No?
I'm trying to take your cue here. I have no idea where it's
about. Okay. So anyways.
Why don't you tell them, Rory?
Yeah, maybe I'll start that. But just to go like, when we exited our former company, it takes a lot of money to do a startup.
When I got fired.
When AJ got fired, and then, I resigned, and we started Brand Builders Group, our income went straight to zero. So literally, like in a matter of a few days.
Yeah, a 2-week period, but we had 2 incomes that went to zero.
Straight to zero. We had a newborn baby. We had our brand new house. And then we were starting a company. And that is very expensive. The reason we were able to do it is because of savings.
Yeah.
We were able to weather that storm, and then literally...
Thank you, Dave Ramsey, and your 6-month emergency fund.
Yeah. And then COVID hits. And we were literally able to weather that storm. We were literally able to hire the people we needed to start Brand Builders Group because we had savings.
Well, yeah, and I think that's important to go. It's like we had savings, but we didn't pay ourselves a salary at Brand Builders Group until year 5. And so every dollar that was coming in was going right back. We earned commissions for the first 5 years of Brand Builders Group. There were no salaries. We earned commissions just like anyone on our team did. Sales commissions, delivery commissions. And that was a huge part of it, is like we could do that, but it was also because we were betting on ourselves. But we also knew that we had to give the company enough runway to make it. And if we were going to pay ourselves big salaries, it wouldn't make it.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really important financial philosophy in the business side that people don't think of. Is like, when you're a small business owner, you just kind of like pay yourself the profit. One of the things that we do is we earmark the money. We take people actually in our 8-figure entrepreneur course, in our membership. We take them through an exercise called Divide the Dollar. And we basically say, okay, if there was, for every dollar you make, there's 100 pennies, divvy up who those pennies are going to go to. And so we've always said, we're going to pay this percentage to the person or persons doing the work. We pay this percentage to the person or persons who sell the deal. We take this percentage and pay the person or persons who generated the lead. we then have this percentage allocated to paying for the overhead and being able to go, okay, this is the amount we can reinvest into like more infrastructure and staff. And then there's this percentage that theoretically is what should be left over for profit.
Well, in actual budgeting, I do it the opposite. So
You start with profit first,
I
is what
start
you're
with,
saying? Yeah.
it's a profit first budgeting. And I go, in order to make I'm just crazy math, a 10% profit margin, I reverse engineer, like, what are the fixed expenses that we're going to have? Then what are the variable expenses? That includes labor, that includes all the software and all the rent. And then I reverse engineer it and go, can we do that? And that tells you, right, how much revenue we need to bring in and what gross margin products and what percentage of products. So I actually, in terms of budgeting, I take the reverse approach. And then if I feel like that's too much of a stretch, then we back it down, we back it down, we back it down. But it's a profit first budgeting.
Yeah. And just, high level percentages, because people ask this a lot in our internal trainings, like roughly we budget 30% to 40% of a dollar for all the variable expenses. So that's paying the people. That includes like, if there's
Yeah,
food
all
and
overhead.
meals and all that stuff. Roughly, somewhere between 5 to 10% for sales commissions. When you add in like salesperson salaries and stuff, it's like 10%. Then you go roughly 15% is what we budget. 15% of revenue is what we budget to pay for lead generation, which we can either pay to our affiliates and referral partners, whether that's employees or clients or true affiliates, or we can pay that in advertising dollars. And then roughly, so what is that? That's like 65. So then roughly you could do like 20 to 25% in overhead. And then that leaves something like a 10 to 15% profit margin. So high level, that's kind of like at least what's worked for us in terms of like how we would structure
In
a
theory.
company.
In
It's in
practice,
theory.
yeah, in practice,
They change each
it,
product, each service changes
mhm.
in that. But I guess my point in saying that to what you said was, if you don't, even when you pay yourself as the business owner, you need to pay yourself for each of those different roles, even if you're doing all of them.
Yeah.
Because if you
Not
don't,
just out of
then
profit.
you don't ever feel like you can afford to hire somebody.
Well, and then it's all false sense of profits, right? If you're not paying yourself at all and you're just taking profits, those aren't real profits, right? It's like if you had to replace yourself, right, as whatever role you play in the company, salesperson, delivery, CEO, president, whatever, right? That costs real money. You'd be paying someone else that. And so we didn't take a salary because we simply couldn't afford it with overhead. So we took it in commissions and then we worked our way towards that. But that's how we had the runway. When people talk about most small businesses don't make it, that's what they're talking about, right? There wasn't enough financial runway to hit the stride. And often that happens because of a variety of different things, but at the end of the day, not enough revenue, right? And so we acted as the primary revenue generators, which is why we took commissions. It's like we're 7 years in, and I just now feel like I'm starting to sit in the seat as real CEO, right? And that's because we couldn't afford it, right? I had to take sales calls. I
And we
had
didn't
to
have
do
people.
delivery,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, well, that's how you have enough runway to make it, right? It's like, yeah, sure, I would have loved to stepped out of some of that stuff, customer service calls, writing copy. It's like I still find myself doing some of those tasks on a pretty frequently basis today, but that's because that's what the business needs.
Yeah, and there's power in paying yourself, I think, commissions. We have three different types of commissions. We've got the lead generation commission, the sales commission, the delivery commission. I think it's powerful to do that because you're when you pay yourself in that way, you know that you're directly contributing to revenue generating activities. And then you've set up the business model to do the same so that other people are stepping in and they're getting paid to generate revenue, which is that's always the hardest thing, is like generating revenue is the thing that nobody wants to do. It's the hardest thing. And so we've always kind of compensated well for that. And then it's like, it's easy to step out of it. Like we really just pulled me out of delivery like last year. And it was because we were able to ramp up the income and the overall revenues and finally start paying ourselves. But it's like there's a bucket of money that is earmarked to pay other people to
Sure.
step in and do the delivery. So that's good. I want to ask you about taxes because you have learned a lot about taxes. What are some of the key tax strategies, or just philosophies, maybe not even tactics or strategies, just people from different countries listening, but like, how do you think about tax strategy? Where do you find tax strategy? Are there some key things that, you advise in general for small business owners?
Sure. I think there's a few things. Before I forget to say this, I would just say if anyone is looking to go like, where do I get more information around some personal philosophies around money? One of my favorite books and really a turning point in my own relationship with money was the book by Morgan Housel, The Psychology of Money. And so if you're looking for additional resources of going like, maybe I do have an unhealthy attachment to money or the idea of money, or I really need to talk about my relationship with money. And I think that's where we all need to start is like, what is our emotional relationship with money? And that dictates so much, even tax strategy, right? It's like if you're obsessed of, how do I make more? How do I keep more? How do I do this? How do I, not pay the government more? Whatever it is, like there's an emotional attachment there that's worthy of you doing some self-discovery in. And that's a great first place to start. I would just preface that. Now, why I became somewhat obsessed with taxes is because I knew nothing. And I was taking a lot of advice from advisors, tax CPA individuals that, quite honestly, I took them at their word and it cost us a lot.
Mm.
And I think that was a first lesson in just because they're a bunny ears professional doesn't mean they know what they're doing. And it was a really good, hard lesson for me to learn in the early days of Brain Builders Group of, oh, that was bad. Bad advice that just cost us tens of thousands of dollars. I will not be making that mistake again.
So I
I
think
won't.
this would be shocking for people to realize that some of the worst tax advice we've ever gotten is from tax professionals.
Yes.
And some of the best tax advice we've ever gotten is from where? Where do we ultimately learn the best tax strategies?
Most of them have been on Instagram.
I
But
was
then
going to say other entrepreneurs.
no,
I would say
but then I
other
go and I
entrepreneurs.
vet them. But I think that's, I follow a few very, very reputable tax, you know, content creators on Instagram. And when I say, like, I'm not kidding, right? I learned some of my best, but then I don't deploy those. I go and I vet them.
Yeah,
I
because
go,
by
I learned
design, they're
this. I heard
sensational.
this. I saw this. Run this through Tennessee because a lot of things that are out there might work in another state, but they don't work in your state, which was some of the awful hard lesson that I had to learn when they deployed something that was counter to Tennessee tax law. And then we ate it double sides and it was really bad. So I think a part of it was I don't need to know all of it, but I need to know enough where if somebody says something whack, I can raise my hand and go, no, I don't think so. Not in Tennessee or not here, or we've done that, or I know what that is, not some random thing. I'm also always going to fall on the side of the law, right? I I want to pay my fair share of taxes and not 1 cent more, but I want to pay my fair share of taxes,
Right.
right? And so it's like I'm always going to fall to a little more on the right side of the line in terms of, hey, I'm going to follow a little bit more to the letter of the law than not, right? A lot of people go, is it a ask for forgiveness or ask for permission policy? And it's like, well, I'm probably going to follow a little bit more on the ask for permission, a little bit, even though I'm walking the line pretty close personally. But some of the best things that I have learned that have helped us. Now, again, I believe this was set to sunset this year, but it has just been extended, is the 199A QBI deduction. And that's a classification for training companies that you're able to take a major deduction on pass-through revenue. And the first year that we took the QBI, the 199A business deduction, qualified business, I think we saved $80,000 in taxes. And it's been roughly about that. So again, I'm not going to go into all the details of each of these for limited time, but these are things to take to your CPA, to your tax advisor and go, hey, would that apply to me? Which is what you should do with anything that you hear from taxes, is not make any assumptions and go, does that apply here? But that has been a very tangible, helpful business deduction that we just, if you're not out there learning, you would never know about it. And I think that was another big thing that went with personal finances that I learned is don't expect others to come to you with ideas that save you money.
Yeah, that's what I
That's
want.
your job.
That's what I wanted to really get at
That's your job.
was going, it's the tax professionals aren't often the one to give us the ideas to vet. It's usually other entrepreneurs, or even if it's on Instagram, it's usually other entrepreneurs, or it's just people doing more sensational things because that's how you get followers. But you gather the ideas and then you
vet it.
take them to a professional to vet.
But it's I would just say, take the personal responsibility of no one's coming to save you and your banking account.
Yeah.
Like
So
you go.
this is another
This is your job.
Financial philosophy we have. It's like, one thing we never do is completely outsource our money and just go, I don't understand that. I'm just going to like, so-and-so takes care of that
If
for
I don't
me.
understand
We never do
then
that.
I go learn it.
Yeah, we never.
Enough to be dangerous. And tax is one of those things, just general finance and accounting. I didn't go to school for a finance degree. I didn't
Tell everyone what your degree was in, babe.
Until my junior year, it was in painting. And then
and now it's in financial statements. Uh-huh.
It's a different kind of art. No, I didn't graduate with a painting degree. I graduated with an advertising degree with a minor in Spanish and business. But up until my dad said, you can't graduate with that, it was painting. No, but I would say with all of that, though, I think just something I've learned in all of this tax research and tax knowledge is one of the things I think is really important, and I have seen them as a mistake, and I would say this with financial advisors or tax advisors, is make sure you don't outgrow who you use. And over the years, we have outgrown 3 separate tax firms. And what do I mean by that?
And bookkeeping. We've also
and yes, several things we've insourced as we've gotten bigger. But what worked for you as a $1 million company or a 3 million or 5 million or to 10, 15, 20 beyond, you really have to look at, are the service providers that I'm using now advancing at the level that I am advancing? And what I learned is the first, really amazing, and this was specific to taxes, tax strategy firm that we used, who were all CPAs. They were great until we had deployed every single thing they had to offer. And then there was crickets for years. And then it wasn't so great anymore.
A lot of them have a playbook of like, these are like the 5 or 10 plays we know how to run, but then they don't have much beyond that.
They don't grow with you.
Yeah.
So I would just say, as you're growing in your own knowledge and and income and revenue, it's like, make sure that you're up leveling your providers as you grow. Now, some can grow with you. Like we've had our personal financial advisor for
as long as we've been
together.
Married, yes.
And he has grown with us, but not all do. And so I have found it's really good. Even if you make the decision not to change, you should have an audit of how you run your finances every couple of years. And I did that this year. And I hired an external firm to come in and just do a tax audit because there were just some things that felt rushed. I had lingering questions that didn't get answered, and I wasn't comfortable with it. So I would say trust your own instincts, but you've got to be in your finances enough to go, I don't know about that. And I didn't know the answer, and I really didn't have the time. So I hired someone to come and do an audit. Y'all, let this be a lesson you never have to learn. That feeling I had within of like, that just felt rushed. That just felt like not thorough with no good explanation. It was just a gut feeling. When I had the audit done, the previous tax firm had simply forgot to select a very important box that cost us $40,000. That was it. They forgot to select a box.
What was the box?
That's confidential financial information.
Come back next week.
But the audit firm that I did, they were like, hey, great news. This is our very first meeting after they had, done an audit of our financials and tax statements. We found $40,000 that we're going to get returned to you. And I said, how? And they're like, well, this is good news, bad news. Good news, we found it. You're going to get the refund check. Bad news, your prior firm forgot to select this one really important box about how you file taxes. Like, what? What do you mean? They just forgot. So I wouldn't have found that. I just had enough wherewithal to go, something's not right. I'm going to pay the $500 to have someone else review the tax statements. They found $40,000 of refunds.
And I think this is an important thing. I feel like this is happening in the medical world too, where it's like,
Get a second opinion.
It's get a second opinion. It's like, don't blindly trust someone because they're the professional. And especially with taxes, here's what's interesting. A lot of firms, if you're a business owner, a lot of the firms that are doing your taxes, the people that are on that team doing your taxes have never actually been a business owner.
Or you have never spoken to either.
Yeah, or
right?
you don't know them.
Down the work. Yeah.
But it's going like, if you've never been in my position, how do you think like I think? And you go, you don't. They're running a playbook. So let's talk about personal finances for a second. What are some of the financial practices that we've done on our personal side to keep track of expenses, manage cash, like, all of that? So can you talk a little bit about more on like the personal side? And also I'd be curious. I think a lot of people would be interested in knowing, how do you transfer that money? When do you transfer that money between like the business makes money and then it comes into the personal, and like, how separate are those entities, or how connected, and like
separate.
Talk about some of that.
I would just say, I think one of the biggest things that we've done on our personal finances is we have a personal bookkeeper. Right? It's a nominal amount of money we pay every month for sanity and peace. We have a business bookkeeper, right? We have 2 in-house accountants and a bookkeeper for the entities we run. Why wouldn't we have that personally? Because it's like, what, am I opening up every bill and paying every bill and tracking it? No. Am I tracking every receipt? No. So we hired someone who's a personal bookkeeper just for our personal finances, and I get a personal statement every month that I go through. And so just like we do in our business, and we have a P&L, we have a personal P&L. It's like, how much did you spend on entertainment? How much did you spend on groceries? How much did you spend on gas?
And how much income came in?
Yeah. And so it's like, I review that every month, and I'm watching for trends of, why did we spend that much in groceries last month? What were we doing? Or whatever. And so it's like, it helps me go, like, this is where we need to pull back. Now, a lot of people live by personal budgets, and I wouldn't say that we necessarily have like a strict budget that we follow personally.
We did early.
We did in the early days.
We did when we were getting out of debt.
But what I do now is I have a better sense of how the money ebbs and flows, and I'm looking for anomalies, right? And you just can't do that unless you're looking at trends month over month, year over year. And if I see something that's abnormal in 1 month, that's not for the year, I'll go back and say, hey, pull me this same period last year. And I'm like, oh, summer, water. Okay, that's why it's always high. So there's just like some of those things that by having a personal bookkeeper has allowed me to not flip out, not stress, because I have historical records. And at this point, we've had this bookkeeper for more than a decade. They know our spending patterns as well as we do. And they have caught fraudulent activity. They have saved us money. Somebody was cashing a bunch of checks at Walmart, and our bookkeeper reached out to me and was like, I've never seen you shop at Walmart before. What are you doing? And I'm like, I don't go to Walmart. She goes, really? You haven't cashed X amount of checks at Walmart? And I was like, no, $3,000 of checks that they were able to mark as fraud and get that money back because you follow your spending patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So that would just be one awesome best practice for a nominal amount of money to save you peace. Track your own personal spending, which I think a lot of people track it in their business and they forget to do the same in their personal life.
One of the keys of managing a successful business financial statement, I think, is also managing by anomaly.
Yeah.
And so one of the reasons to create a budget is that every month on our financial statements, we have, one column that says budget, and then one column that says actual, and then another column that just says like the delta, the difference. And it's going, how do you quickly review financial statements for a business? You just take your kind of ruler down the page and go, if we're kind of spending within the range of what was planned, okay, but we're looking for the big sharp deltas. And then when there's a big delta, it's like, okay, let's double click on that and let's tap in and let's go dive in and look at every expense and all that sort of stuff. So I think that is just kind of a more general practice that you can use with your personal finances or with your business finances, is sort of like when you have a baseline of like a trend line, or create one by way of a budget, and you go, now all of a sudden we can manage by exception. And I think that helps a lot. So we've done that. Talk about the different bank accounts that we have, because I think this has come up before at some of our.
Well, the philosophy has changed over the years.
It has changed, but talk about maybe the journey, the evolution of it, because I think, at one of our accelerator events, which are our in-person masterminds for our members, AJ and I still do 4 of those in person a year with our members. This question came up one time, and I remember people were like so curious about the way that we did this, because we did this for years. So tell them about all of the accounts we had.
Yeah, and we still have several different accounts. And I think as all the interest rates were going nuts, and when that happens, the high yield accounts also kind of went up. And so I made some of these shifts with the market, right? But prior to that, I would just say, like, we don't do this as tightly anymore. This has kind of shifted with some of these.
But for the first 10 years we were married,
so
we did this like clockwork.
We did. And we probably were managing 8 different personal banking accounts, so that we couldn't access our own money. I think that's the gist of it, right? It's like we put in measures to make sure that we weren't touching money that wasn't ours to touch. So we had a primary checking account that was joint
checking.
Then I had a personal spending account. Rory had a personal spending account.
Rory allowance, which I could spend on whatever I wanted, and you could too. So we gave ourselves adult allowances.
Yeah.
And we had our own accounts, and a certain amount of money went in there, and it's like,
I don't have to ask money.
Don't ask any permission if it's.
And that was great. Like, Rory and I have plenty of debates and arguments about things throughout our life. I can never recall in the 18 years that we've been together that we ever have had a serious argument about money.
It's true.
We've had others. How late we work, how much we work, where we're going to eat. We've had plenty of arguments. But
trying to be in the same canoe together was the biggest fight we ever had.
But never about money. And I believe a
money.
lot of that was due to the way that we had these accounts. If he wanted to buy some nonsense piece of technology that I didn't agree with, he was like, spending account. I'm like, okay.
And courses. Right? I spent most of my money on gadgets, courses, and gifts for you.
Yeah, which the last one wasn't so bad. But we never argued about it because it was, can't talk about it money. This is my spending money. Then we had a personal savings, right? That was like our emergency fund. Then we had a givings account, and that was just set aside for tithing and givings. And
that one gets populated first.
And we still have that separate.
We still have that.
That is still separate. 10% of our money, no matter what, every dollar that comes in every single month, 10% goes aside for tithing and givings.
And then we also have a donor advised fund, which is just basically like a next level of that, where we set money aside for charity.
At the end of the year, we do a large amount into that to figure out how we want to spend it for the next year. But every month we set money aside. Then we had a tax savings account. So we were setting aside 35% every single month. So there was no surprise bills or, where'd all the money go? So we had, again, a joint checking. We had a joint savings. We had a personal spend for each of us. We had our tithing and our givings. We had a tax savings account. And then we had a household account. And the household account was for all the recurring routine bills that were paid whether by check or on auto debit, but those were for the routine types of bills and mortgages. So when you looked at all of our different accounts, it really made clear like how much we actually had to spend on things like gas and groceries outside of ordinary expenses. And I think a lot of that was just the training ground to help us know how to treat our money. And we did that for 10, 12, probably 12 years.
And as we started hiring staff, like personal staff of like helping us, like our family managers and and once we had kids, we have like nannies, they would have debit cards that would also have access to the household account. So
theirs were always separate with a $500 max.
So you have joint checking, joint savings. We each had an allowance account, a tithing account, a tax account, and a household account.
And then a separate account for
assistance and family managers. So we had 8 We literally had 8 accounts.
Which now you know why we needed a personal bookkeeper, because to manage that many accounts.
But it's like
We
the
needed
Dave Ramsey envelope system in many ways. It's just like
because
instead of like having a bunch of cash laying around stuck in envelopes, we're actually
what I
segmenting it.
learned about myself, anyways, in managing a lot of our family's finances is don't want to spend money that we don't have. And so I'm going to pull it out, separate it. And then we really knew what we had. And there wasn't this false sense of, oh, look at all this money. It's like, no, this is God's money. This is America's money. This is Rory's money. This is the mortgage's money. Like it was all separated. So at the end of the day, it really gave you a better sense of how much is left over. And that's how we trained
Oh, and an
ourselves.
emergency fund.
Yeah, that was our savings.
We used that, and then we had a different savings if we were saving for a big house. No, emergency fund and savings was the
Yeah.
same. Okay.
But I think it was, again, back to you have to know yourself. That may feel like too overwhelming. It may not be good for you, but it worked for us. And I think that's a part of the goal in all of this is like you got to figure out what works for you. And just because we did it doesn't mean it will work for you. But I think that was our training ground of training ourselves of not every dollar that comes in is for you to spend.
And going back to the divide the dollar in the business is the same thing. Is just going like a lot of entrepreneurs wake up one day and they look at their checking account and they're like, "Oh, we got lots of money. Let's go buy some stuff." And they forgot that like payroll's next week and like they owe this other bill and they're just like looking at their checking accounts like that's not the way to do it. Like look at the budget and earmark the money quickly to the places so that you know what you really have to work with. And I think that just helps a lot of people, operate more logically when you segregate out the dollars like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's interesting. I guess we've never really had a fight about finances, which is great because I think statistically that's like one of the biggest reasons why people get divorced is because of they have money issues.
I think a lot of that was from the financial discipline of coming into the marriage debt free. But I think a lot of it was the separation of accounts.
Last thing I want to talk about, we need to wrap up. I want to talk about giving money.
Mhm.
Um, I want to talk about tithing, generosity. What is your philosophy on that? Have you always been good at it? How has it evolved over the years? And then I'd like to answer this question too.
Do you want to start?
No, go ahead.
I was very blessed from a very young age to get to watch two parents, both my mom and my dad, give generously. And so I was raised in a very generous home. I remember sitting in church. My dad's an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. So there's a lot of family business and entrepreneurship in my paternal line. And I remember sitting in church, and I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and we were sitting on the front row. And I remember my dad would always give the kids like a $20 bill to put in the basket. And then every so often, I would watch him write a check. And I just remember this one particular time, I watched him write a $10,000 tithing check to our church.
Hmm.
And I remember looking at that and looking at him and having a conversation in the car after of like, where did all that money come from? Like to me, like $10,000 was like millions, right? I was a little kid, and he was like,
It's a lot of money.
that's money for the church. And I was like, why do they get that much money? Like why? Like I was so intrigued, and I just like my parents were just like, well, that's not our money, that's God's money.
Hmm.
And so I just was raised at a very young age of there's some money for us, there's money for others, and there's money for God's causes. And my dad had lots of rental houses. My mom and my mom died when I was 15. So if I say my dad singularly, that's why. But I remember like going to all these rental houses on Saturdays, collecting cash, right? So my dad would like go through like all the properties he had, and a lot of these people didn't have banking accounts. So they paid their rent cash. And I remember so many times that we'd go to collect the rent and they just didn't have it. And he'd say, all right, I'll be back next week. And he would just let them stay. And it was like, pay me when you can. And it really set a precedent of sometimes it's not always about making more money. Sometimes it's just about providing some runway for someone else. It's about giving to something that you believe in. That old saying, it's the one who gives the gift is the one who receives the gift. And I saw that lived out. My mom was one of the most generous human beings on planet Earth with her time, love, money, resources, just the ultimate giver. Uh, I just got to witness it at a really young age from both parents, both in a financial aspect, but also in a celebration aspect. My mom was a great celebrator of life, of
Mm-hmm.
just of celebrating, right? It doesn't matter what it was. It was a recital. We got to have a party and roses and stuffed animals. And it was like just a generous, generous giver of helping people feel loved. And then I watched my dad do that financially. So I was raised in a home that was like, there was an expectation that you get 20 bucks, it's not all for you. Some's for you, some's for others.
Mm-hmm.
So I was lucky enough to see that really witnessed and modeled, and I was able to step into that.
That's beautiful. I love that. I came from a family that didn't have much money, and so I think I came at this very opposite, where it was like we didn't have we felt like we didn't have any excess, and we in many ways we didn't. And so when I started to accumulate some money, I was living with the psychology of like, I'm never going to have enough. Like, we never have enough to get what we want. We're never going to have enough. And so I was always naturally holding on to it. And it's not because my mom was not that way. My mom's very generous and always has been, but she's also not
Yeah.
had a lot. And so I grew up like holding tightly of like, I can't give this away. And, I think I started giving out of sheer discipline, out of just, the biblically speaking of like, giving a tithe, a tenth, and didn't really kind of like have the heart for it. I was just doing it like out of obedience. And in many ways, I think that's a great place to start. If for no other reason, it's like, give it out of obedience. Same way of like, I don't want to go to the gym, but I do that, or, like, just do it out of obedience and see what happens. Because, there's this great verse in the Bible in Malachi that this is one of the only places in the Bible where God says, test me in this.
Mm.
He says, bring your whole tithe into the storehouse and see if I do not throw open the floodgates of heaven. Like, test me in this. Like, this is a place where God invites you to test him. And there's this great meme on the internet of a little girl standing next to Jesus, and she's got this teddy bear in her hand, and she's like, Jesus is saying, give me your teddy
The
bear.
small teddy
And then
bear.
she's holding this small teddy bear, and she's like, I can't. Like, this is my favorite teddy bear. And behind Jesus's back, he's holding with another hand this huge teddy bear, like waiting to give it to her. And he's like, just trust me. And I love that meme. I found that to just be true. It's like you really can test God in it. So it's like, if you have to, do it out of obedience. If you can, do it out of faith. Ultimately, that will evolve to doing it out of generosity. And I think, I would say it's like my experience has been, you can't outgive God.
Mm.
There's not been a season when it was like, sometimes we've been called to give to something and like, whew, that's going to stretch us. It's like God has always blessed it somehow. And then, you know, the last thing is just going, there's nothing quite like the feeling you get when you give to someone, especially when you give to something, someone that's really in need. And it's like, what else are we going to do with the money? Like, what's another meal or another car or another trip versus like
Mm.
watching the money that you've worked hard for to make a contribution to someone else's life. And do that while you're alive.
Mm.
Like, don't wait to like die and give all your money away and never see that impact. It's like, enjoy that feeling and that fruit of getting to give people that gift. And I think that's one reason why, I'm most excited about making more money is to give more money. And you've always had such a great, faithful heart in that way. And it's really been encouragement to me. So there you have it, friends. Those are a few of Rory and AJ's random philosophies and smattering principles that about finances that have made a huge difference in our life and in our business and in the lives of the people around us. Keep in mind, again, for us, money is not the marker. Peace is the marker. Peace is the new profit. Hopefully, some of what you learned today will help you have more peace in your life. Share this episode with someone who needs it. If you haven't yet, please go leave a review wherever you listen to this show so other people can find us and come back next time. We'll see you then.